Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Dustin Schutte with me as always, and now I'm joined by Chronic Hoosier. How are you, sir?
Living the dream. Happy to be back. How are you today?
I am alive and well. I'm in the middle of a move, which is always a blast. Not, but I certainly feel it, boy. Every time I have to move, it's I feel it more. It's like playing or running or something. Whew.
Now you staying on the lake? You coming into town?
Oh no! Staying on the lake.
Okay.
That would be nice. It would alleviate some driving, but no. I wish. What's new with you, the kiddos? I know you're ready for some football, but we're got a split allegiance, as you mentioned in the break, obviously, because this week Indiana plays on a Friday night. Not hardly any of us like that. Coach Allen doesn't like it. Nobody likes it. That's for the kids. That's for high schools. I hate when my God, college football, they got games on Tuesdays. They've got games on Wednesdays. They've got games on Wednesdays or Thursdays. Leave Fridays alone. Damn. But that's an argument for another time. So Indiana opening up the season Friday night under the lights against the Illini. I'm looking forward to it.
You and I both, this scheduling, I didn't even realize until yesterday. It dawned upon me that my children won't even be present at the IU tailgate because this is the home opener for South High School football here this weekend. Or I have a daughter in school, and then my middle schooler is it's middle school night at South for the area middle schools that feed in there. So he's going to be with all his middle school teammates in the stands supporting the South team. So it's going to be a split household, still trying to figure out exactly how that's going to work from a logistics standpoint with various start and end times and whatnot. But it's, it's weird. I certainly wouldn't want this to become the norm. I guess I give the conference a pass since it is kickoff of the season. You only get so many night games per year. You only get so many games, especially when you're Indiana. You only get so many games in, that wheelhouse of Indiana weather where you really, really want to be in the tailgate fields and in the stands at the Rock. So certainly not wishing this one away, but I certainly would be okay if we just did this as a one-off every couple of years, because it does greatly impact not just the natural order of things, but it takes the staff off the recruiting trail during a time when they can be out doing evaluations, making themselves seen on the high school sidelines or in the stands as high school games are playing. It's just not good. I don't think for the sport, but it is what it is. And it's just a couple days away now, so we're going to take it with a grain of salt and try to make the most out of it. Hopefully, the Hoosiers can get the season off on the right foot and off to a 1-0 start against the Illini.
Well, we've seen a lot of new things happening. Of course, USC, UCLA coming in. A lot of people talking about the distance and all that. Well, I just saw that Old Dominion Freight Line aligns with Indiana University as the official freight carrier of IU athletics. So
what? I'm not going to lie. I'm all for endorsements and anything that puts money in the coffers. I'm still giddy about the announcement we got yesterday. Upland Beer will remain the craft beer provider for IU athletics. So love to see that stay local. Love to get some great beer offerings at Memorial Stadium, and from the sounds of it, maybe Assembly Hall here sooner than later.
Yeah, I should have had John pull that clip, Scott Dolson, yesterday. He also met with us, and John, if you will start working on that, I was in the midst of sending you that. He met with us after the coaches did, after the Tom Allen and Witt and Bell, and that's one of the things he talked about. Is the possibility that they're looking at that the potential selling beer at Assembly Hall. That's not something that I see happening. Well, I shouldn't say. I should put no time limit because they could do it at any time. He did not put a timeline on it, though. He didn't say we're looking at doing it now, which isn't to say that it couldn't happen this year, but it is already happening at Memorial Stadium, at baseball, soccer, softball, and assembly hall is the next thing. He did mention that alcohol related events went down last year, that they had a lesser amount, that controlling the environment is the bigger thing. And that makes sense. Because now you don't have as many people sneaking stuff in, and and if you're sneaking stuff in, then you have to be sneaking in alcohol, not beer, because it's too hard to get that in.
Yeah, I mean,
you lack creativity.
Yeah, well, it's not. You can get a lot more in via the other way than beer. I can tell you that.
Well, let me tell you, sometimes it doesn't matter if they sell alcohol. I remember going to Pacers playoff games, and just down the street, maybe 2 blocks, there was a liquor store. And maybe I did this, maybe I didn't. I guess we'll never know. But they sold like plastic bags that the metal detectors can't catch, and they had any type of alcohol you'd like, and you just put it in your pocket. The metal detectors don't catch it, and then you can get a soft beverage and dump it in there. So, I mean, it's not going to deter everything, but it probably helps. Plus, you don't have people taking those last, 3 or 4 shots or chugging 2 or 3 beers before they head directly into Memorial Stadium. So I think that there's been enough evidence that typically, at least on the college front, probably not so much on the NFL or MLB, because we constantly see fights breaking out in those areas. But I think there's enough evidence to show that when you offer beer in and around the stadium, it typically cuts down on the number of incidents, fights, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Scott actually talked about a lot of things yesterday. I asked him, one of the things I asked him was about NIL. And I know that we're talking apples and oranges here with football, basketball, or football and anything else because of size, just because of sheer size of numbers, players, and all that. But there's obviously been a good push for basketball, and that's understandable. It's the easiest to get up and going, the fastest. It's the most popular. It is the one that the university fans want to see up and going first. So I get that. But my question is there a plan to start to kind of even it out, to start, working on the football side of things? And for us, he says, so I'm trying to find what his answer was, but I'll have to find that later while I'm talking. But the goal, of course. But right now, it's basketball oriented, Chronic.
Yeah, it is. And that's, I think that's what most people would expect IU's priorities to be, just based off of the culture at Indiana, the tradition, the history of the programs. But I think when you look at the bigger picture and you look at how NIL is reshaping college athletics, right in front of our eyes, football is the final frontier that Indiana will have to conquer when it comes to the NIL world. Because when you've got, all the institutional, all the structural disadvantages that Indiana currently faces playing in the Big Ten East, in this particular geographic part of the country, it's a steep enough hill. It's a tough enough pull to convince top level talent why they should pick Indiana over some of the teams we're competing against, some of the teams in our own backyard. But when you throw in the financial side of it with NIL and the can of worms that's opened up, the schools that prioritize football from a resource standpoint are the ones that are really starting to distance themselves from the rest, and that's really going to be where Indiana is going to be forced to keep up. We have long talked about facilities, coaching salary, assistant salary, all the way down the line. Now you're talking about one that directly impacts the players, the recruits, straight to their pocketbook. They can make an immediate impact on their families and their livelihoods and everything around them, in ways far, far, far greater than, indoor practice facilities, locker rooms, coordinators, things of that nature. So I think, Indiana may be at a disadvantage there right now, but I think there's certainly an awareness and a recognition of what the task is ahead and how they're going to have to be able to compete. And I would imagine that Scott Dolson and his entire cadre are acutely aware, and I would imagine are actively working on solutions for that. Right now with Hoosiers for Good, the Hysterics Collective, these things are private entities for purposes of record reporting. We don't know exactly what the raw numbers are flowing in and out. But you just look at anecdotal evidence, the coldest, all these NIL deals you see coming out. There's a big difference when you have collectives that are just, spreading it around evenly or prioritizing top talent, versus when you have private actors, when you have businesses that are directly engaging the players for these agreements. And as we've spoken about with NIL, giving them the opportunity to stand on stage when that big jumbo check is presented to the player, as opposed to having to employ, seedy bagmen and dark alley situations and things like that. The schools that have the big booster support for the football programs are really flexing their muscles in that area. And that's going to have to be an area where Indiana finds a way to compete. If they want to start attracting some of that talent that NIL is now going to start divvying up according to the bidding wars.
Well, one of the things that I've had a concern with, Chronic, is if you're Indiana, I don't think there's any concern about that being a factor on the basketball side, as you just mentioned. But on the football side, you hear a few weeks ago, Ryan Day, or maybe it was a few months ago now, saying, basically we need 13 million to be competitive. And I think that when you look at the history of Indiana football, I mean, we all know what the history is. It's not great. And I feel like there's a lot of donors or boosters or whoever is going to get involved and is going to say, what's the point? We're not going to be able to compete with that kind of number. So I don't want to say that they're going to throw in the towel or give up, but I just feel like there's going to be a concern about a potential defeatist type of attitude where, well, if this is what Ohio State, Penn State, there's no chance we're going to raise that. So why don't we put our efforts somewhere else, into men's basketball, women's basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, some of those other things? I mean, do you think that could be an issue, or do you think that eventually Indiana is going to be they'll have something more on the football front?
I do think it's an issue, and we're always trying to measure what's enthusiasm, what's the level of apathy surrounding the program. Mm-hmm. And you can measure it in terms of attendance. You can measure it in terms of ticket sales and licensed goods sales and everything else. They very much battle that, just like we do every season, to get fans in the stands. I think what strikes me when it comes to the NIL realm, particularly with football, I've talked to a lot of decision makers, a lot of check writers in this town, and just gauged what's your interest in entering to the NIL space. My workplace has been approached multiple times by IU athletes or the representatives seeking NIL deals, and the difference between helping the basketball program land a 5-star versus what are we doing for the second string offensive lineman? It's just a night and day difference. And when it comes to the program, or when it comes to the deals that maybe don't have the prestige, the impact potential, due in large part to roster sizes between the different programs, due in large part to just the depth of talent and that talent's ability to impact. Most of the people I talk with are looking at it strictly from a return on investment standpoint. How much money am I really willing to spend in order to affiliate my brand, my business with that particular personality? And what's it going to give? How much more sales is that going to generate for me? And more often than not, it's viewed as that would be a vanity project rather than an actual business investment. And especially with the economy kind of being in flux right now, coming out of the last 2 years and all the economic forces at play, most of the businesses I know are kind of tightening the belt right now and looking at ways to streamline, and maybe not so willing just to throw money willy-nilly, just for the sake of saying, we're involved in that area. Now, I do know donors that continue to, whether it be for priority points, for the prestige, whatever, who continue to to reinvest in the program and through their donations, and now diverting some of those funds into the collectives, knowing that we have to do it. But I think it's going to be increasingly difficult for Indiana to justify some of those dollars coming from that particular donor class when you're coming off a 2-11, or I'm sorry, a 2-10 season. When you don't have a lot of hope right now for contention in the conference, contention in the division. When bowl eligibility is kind of the high water mark right now, it's hard to garner the enthusiasm required for people to break out the checkbooks and start putting all those zeros in front of the decimal point. So I think it's one of those things where when the program finds success, when they're able to get their footing back underneath them, I think that task becomes easier. But I still think Indiana is going to be structurally disadvantaged simply because of that enthusiasm gap among its football programs and the donors versus some of the other schools around us.
I asked Scott Dolson about NIL, like I mentioned yesterday, about trying to go out. Here's what he had to say on that.
Yeah, let me first just say that, we've been working on NIL, it was a little over a year ago when NIL started, and we were working on it the year before. And I'm really proud of our team internally has done everything we can to put our student athletes in a position for success and to maximize that opportunity. As it relates to specifically to football, it's certainly important from a competitive standpoint that our student athletes have success here in all our sports, but certainly football is a priority. We can only control what we can control. I will say, since you opened the door, I do want to thank all of the supporters out there who have supported NIL efforts, particularly, as you said, Hoosiers for Good, who's really done some amazing things. And I know they want to continue to grow that. And I know football is important to them as well. Again, that's outside the athletic department, but it is something that they know it's important to us that we have success from our student athletes. So again, as future student athletes look at coming here, they see that there are NIL opportunities here, and we take it very seriously. And I think we're on a good track to do that.
And Scott Dolson, by the way, is, again, I will say, he is the right guy at the right time for Indiana University. I think they're very fortunate to have him here during all this time because, my God, a new AD, he landed right when everything hit, and he has navigated everything pretty daggone well, I have to say, Chronic.
No, you want to talk about a bumpy liftoff, COVID, NIL, revenue shortfalls all the way down the line.
Transfer portal, boom.
Yep. The hits have just kept on coming as far as the changing landscape. And, I think that's one of the great benefits with Scott Dolson is this is a guy he maybe had I think one other job perhaps at some point in his career outside the university, but pretty much a lifer here at IU. He's just well-positioned, well-connected, and certainly astute and apprised of what's going on and what it's going to take to succeed. All that being said, though, at the end of the day, it's still Indiana football. That's the product you've got to sell. And I think a lot of this becomes more theoretical and academic when you've got a program that's able to achieve and sustain success, by whatever definition you measure that. It certainly makes that job a whole lot easier on every front, whether it be ticket sales, whether it be, coaching retention, player retention, all the way down the line, NIL, donors, everything. A rising tide will lift all boats. But where I think it becomes particularly tricky for Indiana, especially as we enter into this new media rights age and these astronomical figures that we're seeing now, they're going to start flowing into the Big Ten schools, is, football is still going to be the engine that drives that entire bus. And the other 23 varsity sports at IU are all directly impacted by football success. So whatever means it takes in order to leverage these newfound resources and continuing to grow the success of the football program and then sustain it is just going to be a net benefit for everybody on 17th Street. And the great news is we are just a little over 72 hours away from getting a new season off on hopefully the right foot and heading down that path towards reestablishing success for IU football.